When I'm asked what my favorite comic is, I may answer with Watchmen or V for Vendetta, but sometimes I'll say it's the Chninkel. Um, the complete French title is Le Grand Pouvoir du Chninkel. In English, it would be The Great Power of Chninkel, although, unfortunately, this was never translated into English, although many people reclaim it to be. It was made in 1986 by the writer Jean Van Damme, one of the most prolific European authors. He has written hundreds of albums, and with art by the magnificent Gregory Rosinski. And this follows John, a little Chninkel, who lives in a world, in a planet in constant battle, a planet dominated by these three very friendly looking warlords. And one day, John, who is a slave, finds himself in the middle of a huge battle. And he is the only survivor, or one of the very few survivors. And the creator of the worlds, or God, if you like, appears to him and charges him with a almost impossible mission. John must bring peace to this world, or God will destroy the planet completely. This is a very straightforward adventure, which is basically an allegory to Christianism, to the Bible, to the New Testament, but is also very much inspired by 2001 The Space Odyssey, by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Chninkels are very much like hobbits, and even by Moebius and Jodorowsky's Linkal. Some people see in John another version of John the Fool, the Inkal's main character. I recently reread this by the third or fourth time, and I must say that I have to downgrade it from that favorites list of mine. I still love this book, but it is such a simple narrative and so straightforward that it really doesn't fit into that list anymore. But it's highly, highly recommended. Rosinski's art is absolutely beautiful, although my memory of this book had it as a little bit more visually imaginative than it is, but the art is gorgeous. Rosinski really is one of the greatest authors, at least in the European market. And John the Chninkel is a very, very poor guy. This is one of the few comics my wife ever read, and when one of us is feeling miserable or unlucky for some reason, we'll just say, I'm feeling like the Chninkel. Then, just a few days ago, I read The Sender, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Dustin Nguyen, and I was a bit disappointed with it. and my problems started right away in the first page of the comic, and in the first caption box. It reads something like the planet Nirata. Nirata is the technological and cultural center of the nine central planets group known as the United Galactic Council. And I find this such a unsophisticated way to start a series. It's even a bit childish. It's how a 12-year-old would start his own comic, and a 12-year-old back in the 1980s. And I was not surprised by this book at any point. It is basically a space opera Pinocchio. And I didn't find the writing anything special. I don't know much about Jeff Lemire. I expect him to be a much better writer than he shows here. And the translation was not very helpful either. There's at least one translation option, which involves the driller is a killer line that was very unfortunate in Portuguese, but never minding that. What is indeed very nice is the art by Dustin Nguyen, although it feels very incomplete, which is understandable, taking in account the comics monthly schedule. But still, if you compare this art with Tyler Crook's Harrow County, which is also painted, Harrow County is so much more detailed, so much more visually elaborated, and Nguyen's art is a little bit like an impressionist painting. I found myself very often putting the book right in front of my nose, trying to see some more details in the panels, but that's not the kind of art this is. This is mostly an impressionistic kind of art, but very good indeed, and especially in the facial expressions. He uses these very big eyes on Team 21 to make it very dear and very sweet, and I was not very impressed with anything particularly in this book, and will probably not continue to follow it. But what I really did enjoy was Planetary. And I'm usually 2 or 3 years behind in my readings, and this time it's more like 20 years behind. But that's okay, and I think that if I had read this 20 or 15 years ago, I would probably not enjoy it as much as I did now. This is book 1 from the series, collecting the first half of Planetary, and I already ordered book 2, so I will shortly be finishing my read of this story. But it was a very long time since I enjoyed a comic this much, and since I was as excited as a comic as I now am with Planetary. This is not as as elaborate, as intricate as Watchmen, nor as crazy as some Grant Morrison's creations, or it is not as prone to multiple interpretations as Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, but nevertheless, this is absolutely the nerds galore, the nerds paradise. For those of you who don't know the basic premise of Planetary, this is about a group of archaeologists of the mystery. Three guys that investigate and collect data from the most mysterious, secret, amazing things taking place in the 20th century. But not exactly the real 20th century, but the pop fiction one. This is basically a very big homage to comics in particular, but also to movies and to pulp books. And the narrative is quite straightforward, and each issue is sorts of a self-contained little episode, although there is an underlying global narrative going on. But it is a very fast and enjoyable read, although there are some high science concepts going on, some complicated theories from quantum physics. But Warren Ellis delivers those very succinctly, yet in a comprehensible way, in an understandable way, which prevents it from becoming ever boring. And it is that kind of simplicity in this book that makes it special, because the thematic behind it is exactly dedicated to comics and to pop culture in general. And so this is highly recommended to any nerd. And John Cassidy's art is excellent. It fits the narrative just perfectly, and it's so versatile. He manages to draw characters with a retro look and with a futuristic look, and sometimes he adapts a very noir style. Sometimes it's more like science fiction. Other times it's more on the fantasy side with monsters and any kind of pop culture and comics reference you can imagine. Ultra pleasant, very exciting, and it took me like 5 or 6 issues to realize that Warren Ellis uses absolutely no foul language in here. There is not one single F word, nor even shit, which is kind of surprising taking into account Ellis' Transmetropolitan. But it doesn't mean the characters are less tougher because of that, or no, not at all. These really are some badasses. That absence of foul language just forces the writer to find other ways to show us how cool and tough these characters are, and so it just empowers this story. It's wonderful. Highly recommended to the nerdy new Planetary. Well, thank you for watching. Bye bye.